Hey guys, my name is Christine, what is up? So today I would like to talk to you all about rib protectors! Okay. So I've been racing go-karts for just over a year now, and I can say that it is a surprisingly physical activity. Like, I might not have the physique of a 20-year-old Greek goddess or anything, but I am pretty fit. I work out and I'm generally put together pretty well physically. That said, go-karts can be pretty demanding on the body, especially your arms, back, and ribs. Rib pain primarily comes as a result of a go-kart not having a suspension system the way most race cars do, and without that give, your body really does take a lot of the brunt of the bumps and bangs you experience out on the track, as well as the G-forces involved in going around some of those tight hairpin turns. So for a little bit of background, I primarily race two different types of karts. The first type are these. These are rental karts that I race at a local track here in Western Washington called PGP. They're Burrell karts with 4-stroke Honda engines. It's the kind of thing where you just show up and they put you in a cart and give you a helmet and send you out on the track and all that. These karts are pretty safe and are a lot of fun. PGP is a great facility. They hold league races and all kinds of cool events in these karts, and it gets pretty competitive out there at the higher levels. It's a great way to get your feet wet, and I think it's definitely a better experience than what you usually see at one of those indoor places with the electric karts. But this is the kart that really brought the reality of rib pain to my attention. So this is my kart. I actually made a video about this kart earlier this year. It has a 4-stroke Briggs LO206 engine, which is not the fastest thing in the world, but they do generally run about 10 miles an hour quicker and run lap times about 10 seconds faster at PGP than the rental karts that I run there. And of course, the physical strain increases as you move into faster kart classes. The first key to relieving the strain on your ribs is having a seat that fits well. The seat has to be big enough for you to fit in, obviously, but if your seat is too big, you'll get tossed around and beat and bang up against it. And since most seats are made out of this hard fiberglass, after a full race day of that kind of abuse, rib pain can become an issue. So you want your seat to be pretty snug. When I bought my kart, the first thing I did was take it down to the kart shop and try seats out in person so I could find one that fit just right. I've also put a bunch of this thick foam padding in. You can find padding that's been cut and made specifically to fit in a go-kart seat, but I just got some generic padding off of Amazon. I first noticed I needed a rib protector after my first day in the 206 kart. I came home that day with my ribs visibly bruised, and that was in a well-fitting seat with a race suit and a shirt underneath that. Of course, I had just bought the go-kart and had spent a bunch of money getting it ready, and then my helmet and my race suit and all that, so I was kind of on a budget and just bought the first cheapest thing I could find online. And that was this thing! So this is a carbon fiber rib vest by K1. It's available on Amazon for about $100, and it does offer some minimal protection. The outer shell here is this cheap, thin plastic, and it does fit around you pretty well since it's nice and flexible, but that also means it's pretty flimsy and doesn't really offer a lot in terms of minimizing the impact on your ribs. On the plus, it's actually pretty adjustable. It has these plastic clamps on the front with straps that you can adjust to make it bigger or smaller. This rib vest actually worked out pretty well for a while. PGP is a pretty smooth flat track that doesn't have a lot of super tight hairpin turns, but PGP does not have a club racing series for 206 in the summer. So in the spring, I started racing down at a place called Mountain Highway Raceway in Spanaway, also known as PSGKA. PSGKA is a super cool facility, and the people who manage that track are amazing, but I think it's more or less regarded as one of the more challenging tracks in the region. It's a pretty small track with a fairly interesting 9-turn layout. There are some really tight hairpin turns, some hard-hitting curves, and a couple places on the track where the elevation kind of changes, which can cause issues if you hit those points the wrong way. All of that really exacerbates the strain on your body as you drive the kart. After a few races there, I noticed my ribs progressively getting worse. Even wearing the K1 protector every time I went out on the track, it felt like my pain tolerance in my ribs was getting worse, and it was becoming easier to aggravate them. Even when I went back to PGP to run the rental karts, I would notice my ribs getting increasingly uncomfortable. And if you're uncomfortable in the go-kart, it will affect your performance out on the track. It kind of culminated one weekend back in June when I tried to do a doubleheader down at PSGKA where you do a whole race day on Saturday and then you come back the next day to do another whole race day. And by the time that final race came around on day 2, I was extremely uncomfortable. By that point, I kind of knew that the K1 rib protector was not going to do the job and I'd have to get something better. So I went to an actual race shop in town and the only one they had available was this one. So this is an Alpine Stars rib vest. It's actually a pretty popular one. I see this one being used a lot by guys who do rental karts and club racing. It's a harder polyurethane outer shell. It provides a little more protection and is actually a lot more visually appealing. One thing I didn't like about this one straight away was the fasteners. Don't get me wrong, they work pretty well, but it has one of those loop-de-loop jobs as opposed to the easy clips that the K1 has. It's kind of an issue for me because more often than not, I won't be ready for my session because I'm off running my mouth with people, not paying attention to where I'm supposed to be. So it's tough to get it on in a snap. But it is an okay vest for the money. Most places will have this for around 150 bucks, but you can find it for as low as 120 in certain places. So it's a little more expensive, but does offer a little more protection. So the weekend after I bought this, my family wanted to go down to PGP for some rental karting. So I took this vest down to try it out and just promised myself I'd take it easy since my ribs were still kind of sore. And of course, when you're a racer, it's pretty hard to actually take it easy once you're out on the track.
I'm dropping the hammer! No, you're not!
When I left the track that day, I could barely stand. It was awful. I didn't have any visible bruising, but it was bad enough to where I had to go to the doctor the next day. They told me that most likely I'd strained my intercostals, which are the muscles that sit here in between your ribs. They told me to take pain medicine and just stay out of the go-kart for a few weeks so that my ribs could heal. After about a month and some change, my ribs were pain-free and I had 100% motion with no discomfort. So I went down to PSGK and took the 206 kart with the Alpine Stars rib vest. And I will say that my ribs weren't as bad as they were before, but I still left the track feeling pretty uncomfortable. And I'll be honest, I was feeling pretty defeated at that point. I was afraid I wouldn't even be able to continue racing go-karts. But I did have one more trick up my sleeve. A couple of karting friends had recommended a rib protector called the Bingeo bumper. I had also read about that one on Reddit and a few other forums, and it's supposed to be like the Cadillac of rib vests. The catch is that it's pretty expensive. Looking online, it seems like there are a few varieties that range from about $190 up to about $500. But it was recommended to me that I get this one. So this is the Bingeo Bumper Carbon. The outer shell, as you can hear, is a pretty hard shell that's apparently a composite of fiberglass and carbon fiber. I think I wound up paying $250 for this rib vest. It differs from the standard Bingeo bumper in that the standard just has a shell of fiberglass, whereas this one is a fiberglass carbon fiber composite or something. As I said, there are other Bingeo bumper models out there that provide even more protection for the back and the sternum, but they can run as high as like $500. I have to say this rib vest has worked like a charm for me. Since I got this, I've run rental karts, the 206 kart at PGP and PSGK down in Spanaway, and my ribs have not bothered me at all. Like, I cannot overstate how much of a game changer this rib vest has been for me. So the shoulder straps are a little weird because they make kind of this X in the back, and honestly when you wear this thing, it kind of feels like you're wearing a barrel, like in those old cartoons. But the way it fastens is actually pretty easy. It's just got this big field of Velcro on the front. Easy on, easy off.
I can't stand Velcro, that tearing sound.
The biggest downfall for this one that I can see, for the ladies out there, is the shell part covers so much area that it actually kind of squishes your boobs together. They do make a lady bumper, which seems to just be a Bingeo bumper with some of the side panels cut out to make room for the girls, if you know what I mean. I was actually going to return this one and get the lady bumper, but I just never got around to it. Fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not the most well endowed in that area, so while the squishing is a noticeable feature, it isn't really a huge deal for me. The scratches and stuff are a pretty noticeable thing with this rib vest, but I honestly think it's just going to be a thing with any rib vest that you get. I've seen some of the guys out of the track with this rib vest and just patch it up with Gorilla Tape or whatever they have. This rib vest was pretty expensive, but by the time I broke down and got it, it was a desperate attempt to even be able to stay in the cart. Like, this was a borderline last-ditch effort to solve my rib pain. If you're in the position I was and this rib vest doesn't do it for you, there are some other options. RibTech makes these cart seats that wrap around your torso a little more, which I've read can work pretty well, but they're freaking expensive. Look, at retails at $539. I don't know what the hell is going on in this seat where it needs to cost that much. Fortunately, the Bingeo Bumper Carbon was what did it for me. Like, I cannot recommend this rib vest enough. Like, I know that karting can be expensive, but you're gonna pay over $100 for a rib vest anyways. And if that doesn't work for you, you're gonna have to upgrade, which will be another $100. So if you're gonna go through all that, I'd highly recommend taking the leap and just grabbing one of these if at all possible. Rib pain is one of those things where it affects almost all of us who race go-karts, and it's one of those injuries that's the hardest to shake, because once you hurt your ribs, you'll need to be out of the go-kart for weeks and months in order to heal properly. So if you're going to be driving go-karts at a semi-competitive level, I would not neglect your ribs, and I would not skimp on protection there. So there it is. K1 rib vest, only $100, pretty cheap, pretty flimsy, offers some very basic protection. Alpine Stars vest is a little bit more expensive and a little better. Honestly, I probably did not give this one a fair shake because my ribs might not have been 100% before putting this through a real test. But I know a lot of guys use this one and it seems to work pretty well for them. So if you're gonna spend the money on the K1 vest, I'd just go ahead and at least spend the extra $20 for this one. But the Bingeo bumper carbon here is where it's at. It's fairly pricey, especially if you're just starting out and it seems like you're forking out all this money every 10 seconds just to get your card on the track. But at the end of the day, it's the best, safest option, and that extra protection is well worth the investment. So there you go, guys. I'm sure there are lots of other great rib vests and seats out there. I've heard of people also using like padded shirts and all sorts of other tricks. So if you race karts and you know of any products or tricks or anything like that that have worked for you for rib pain, please let us know in the comments. I certainly don't really know what the hell I'm talking about, so maybe you do. So I haven't uploaded to YouTube as much as I'd like lately. Recently I made the decision to step away from streaming on Twitch because I wanted to focus on racing and some other personal things. Hopefully that'll free up some more time for me to work on the YouTubeage. I've been wanting to make a video or two documenting some of my races, and now that I'm getting to the point where I don't look like a total tool out on the track, I've been thinking about that a lot more lately. But it's hard to shoot video when you're at the track and you're focused on the kart and where you need to be and when. Plus it's super awkward to shoot video in front of people. But I do enjoy creating content, shooting and editing and all that crap, so please like and subscribe, follow me on my socials and all that other kind of jazz, and I'll see you guys on the flip. Bye! Fortunately, the Bingeo bumper carbon did it for me. Like, I cannot recommend this rib vest and just stay out of the go-kart for and a couple places on the track where the elevation sort of changes, which can cause issues if you hit those points to certain. God bless!